We're ready. Hi guys, this is Tina Thompson. This is our third last day. We are on February 12th. It's Wednesday. Yes, I did have to look at my slides to find out what day it is. I am really excited to talk about today because today we're going to talk a little bit about a program that I had started when I was a foster parent. My husband and I were foster parents for a lot of years. And we thought it was important to get people to understand what's going on in the life of a child and what foster care is like. Not so much like each home is like, but what you can expect if your child is in foster care. It's a big concern. So that being said, let me switch over to the slideshow, and we'll start with some things that are a little bit more fun. The year is 2020. Oh my goodness, that seems like so long ago, and yet also like just yesterday. Now, of course, we had the coronavirus in 2020, and that was the big news. It shut down everything. I started to take it seriously when the Catholic Church shut down, because as far as I can tell, they never shut down. What else was going on then? Well, interestingly enough, the Dow Jones Industrial Average dropped. It fell almost 3,000 points. Now you say, well, yeah, okay. The Wall Street crash when the Depression started was less than that. So it fell more than the Wall Street crash, and yet the repercussions were not nearly as bad. George Floyd was another thing that happened. There we go. George Floyd was the gentleman who was being held down by the police and said he couldn't breathe, and they didn't respond, and the police were actually prosecuted and found guilty of committing his murder. That led to a whole lot of riots. There's a part of me that wonders if that would have happened if we weren't on lockdown, because I think people were very stir crazy by then. But it's interesting. It made a big change in how things were being done. Let's go back over here. There we go. On TikTok, we had some dance challenges. Not one, not two, but a lot that year. Again, everybody was stuck inside and we had to do things, so dance challenge was one of them. Other things we've done, puzzles became very popular again. Dalgona coffee. It went around TikTok and some of the social media, and I'm not really sure what it is, but it got really popular, and the recipes for that became really popular. A lot of people started doing a homemade bakery, especially bread. That was a real popular pastime. The Tiger King series was all the talk. Everybody's talking about that. Instagram talked about working from home, and just a lot of the different things that became everyday. I mean, Zoom meetings just became a normal thing. It was the only kind of meeting you were allowed to have. And a lot of people adopted pets during 2020. And there was a big rise in that, but there's also a big rise in people giving them back. The top Google searches for 2020 include, and I'm just going to let that sit for a second while you read them. Some of them are kind of interesting. Some of them are kind of scary. And then, of course, we've got the top 5 searches in different areas. The most searched movies in 2020 were Parasite, 1917, Black Panther, 365 DNI, and Contagion. And that was interesting. And then, well, you could see some of the people that were popular search were like Joe Biden and Kim Jong-un, Boris Johnson, Kamala Harris, and Tom Hanks was right up there. In National CASA during 2020, they had gotten to 93,225 volunteers. They had served, that year they have served, the whole country served a little bit more than 250,000 children. and they had more than 4 million volunteer hours of time donated. And again, CASA is about the volunteers. So that's a lot of donated time. Of those children who had been served by CASA, fewer than half a percent of those kids re-entered foster care once an appropriate decision was made as to what their permanency should be. That's a big deal because it's closer to like 40% when CASA is not involved, depending on where you're at, you know, your social workers and stuff. But it's 0.5% is fabulous. 42% of CASA jail cases were closed with the reunification of parents. And that's kind of a plus because, again, the longer they spend away from their parents, the more it hurts the kids that are going through it. And you can see in purple is the sliver that aged out of foster care. That's an important sliver because when you age out of foster care as a foster kid, it's very difficult to have people to turn to. Like my kids, I think back to when they were 18 and 19, and they were certainly not ready to live on their own. And if they got a flat tire or the gas bill was due, I got phone calls. So if they don't have those adults to rely on, it's going to make it very, very much harder for them to become adults. Child Place CASA was also busy. You see that we had 14 active volunteers. Since 2000, we had served over 1,200 kids. There were 119 kids in care at the end on our rolls at the end of 2020. We had 70 kids that didn't have CASA volunteers, so we need to reduce that. Again, that's changed a little bit. We'll talk about that when we get into 2025. And the other thing was everything was by Zoom. A lot of the court meetings were by Zoom, NDTs were by Zoom. Zoom became real popular when working with CASA. The thing that did not go to Zoom was meeting with the kids and checking out their environment, talking with the foster parents or the parents they were placed with, and people involved. All right, have you ever thought about what a child in foster care goes through? And this is where we started. We had a program where we had politicians and leaders come in and kind of show them about the system, what it's like, where it works, and what it doesn't. So I'm going to walk you guys through that a little bit. We started by giving each participant, now mind you, these are usually politicians in their suits and, you know, ready to go, and we handed them a garbage bag and explained, you know, that their parents were arguing and had come to blows and now they're going to prison and the kid would have to come with me. And so these politicians became the child and they would have to come with me, and that was all the explanation I had given them. The bag is for their most important things, and they had to fill it quickly because we had places to be. You know, can't see that, it's my watch. Places to be, let's go. As a social worker, there were a lot of kids on my plate, and this was the one I was dealing with right now, but that didn't mean I could give them the whole day. What would you have put in your bag? And that's the interesting thing, because a lot of kids neglected to put in socks and underwear, because why would they? The important things to them were not their socks and underwear. All right, let's go back to the year 2021. Kamala Harris was the first woman elected vice president. Juneteenth became a federal holiday. The NASA's Perseverance landed on Mars, and now we're getting photos from that. That was the year that we had the January 6th, when the White House was, the Capitol was attacked, overrun. And it was also the year that the U.S. military withdrew from Afghanistan. And I'm really not going to get into that because my feelings on that would become very apparent. Things were left behind. a lot of things were left behind, and let's leave it at that. What else was going on? Well, there was the Olympics in Tokyo, and again they had we were still coming off of COVID, so that was still a thing. They wanted to limit the number of people that were in the Tokyo village. Musk and Bezos got together and sent William Shatner, the actor who portrayed Captain Kirk on Star Trek, into space. He's in his 80s at this point, and he got to go into space, which is kind of cool. The movies that were very popular were, as may or may not be surprising, were all Marvel movies. All superheroes. It was all about the superheroes and the supervillains. It was also the first time that Squid Games came on the air, and that was really popular. If you know, you know. Squid Games is a Korean, I think, TV show. Zoom, of course, became popular. I don't know why it was Zoom instead of Skype, but it was. My guess is that Skype was bought by Microsoft, and they didn't run it as well as they could have. These little bubble things where you push the bubbles in and out on the other side, those were real popular that year too. And I'm not really sure why. That never did it for me. There was a Reddit run on GameStop. And what it means is this. GameStop is a video game franchise, and it was not doing so well. So somebody got on the social media platform Reddit and said, hey, why don't we run up the stock prices? And then that will give GameStop a boost. So basically, based on what was written on Reddit, people started buying GameStop, and then when it reached its peak, everybody sold at the same time. So the stock dropped down again. However, I will point out GameStop is still in business, and they didn't think it was. NFTs, those were basically images and memes and graphics that you could own. You could pay somebody, and then you would officially own that graphic. Did people have to pay you to use it? No, they did not. However, that was the thing. Everybody was buying NFTs. There were also a lot of coins that came out and other digital monies. Dogecoins were one of those that came out and are still around. A lot of the ones that came out were actually just scams. People would say, okay, this is the next big thing to come, and they'd get a celebrity to come on board and say, hey, I want you to encourage people to buy this one, and they would. And then as soon as there was nobody else interested in it, the whole market would just bottom out and the company would close. Let's go back to talking about that black bag that you had. In your garbage bag, what would you have put? As I said, socks and underwears, probably not. Photo albums, electronics, yep. Your favorite toy, probably. But especially being a kid, you don't usually think about the future because there is no future. There's only now. So you would grab what you could see. Then we would put the politician or the leaders into a car. And I would, as I started driving them, I would explain that there's this lovely family that just can't wait to meet them. We have to make a quick stop first, but you're going to love this new family. We would stop at Trinity Hospital. And I would explain to the politicians or the leaders how many kids were abused and needed to be seen and needed medical help, and how neglect was different and the different medical help that was needed. I would also explain that a lot of the kids had to go through the hospital before they went into placement so that we could document what was wrong and what was broken and what the bumps and bruises did the kid come in with. It seems a sad reason to have to go to a hospital. So then after what felt like a really long time at the hospital, we would be on the road again. This time, we'd pick a stranger's house and we'd pull in. And now you gotta understand, not only are there strange people there, in a strange house, they have strange rules. what was going on in your house would maybe completely 180 different from what was going on here. At your house, you may have been told that if somebody hit you, you hit them back, because that's, fair is fair, eye for an eye. Here, they might tell you that, no, we never hit, we only talk things over. And it would be such a stark difference that it would be like taking you from where you're at in your home right now and putting you into a home maybe in Africa where there isn't the 21st century luxuries that we're used to having. So we would all sit together, the foster kid, the foster parents, maybe even some of the other foster kids, and we would talk over their rules. And we encourage foster parents not to have a lot of rules because, of course, these kids are not used to that. And how many rules can a 3-year-old learn in a half hour? We would talk over your expectations. We expect you to have a bedtime at 8 o'clock. We expect you to eat all of your dinner, those kind of things. And then consequences. Well, what if you didn't meet our expectations? What could you expect the consequences to be? And then, while our leaders and politicians were still sitting there, I would stand up to leave, leaving them there, of course. Most children in that position would panic. Because I, as the caseworker, was the only one who knew where their home was. Typically, the children don't know how to get back to their house. In a moment, I would leave and they would be alone. How in the world would their parents be able to find them? How would they get back together with their parents? How would they get back home? Let's switch gears again. It's the year 2022. OpenAI became ChatGPT, which is probably what you know it is. Twitter became X, which nobody calls. Nobody calls it that. Roe versus Wade got overturned, which meant everybody was running to the state levels trying to figure out if abortions would be legal in their states or not, and what the rules would be for it. Queen Elizabeth died in 2022. The world population grew to beyond 8 billion people. And the Russians were in the Ukraine again. Apple's worth went from $1 trillion just a couple of years ago to $3 trillion. There was an Andy Warhol painting that sold for the most ever at $195 million. Victoria's Secret. This one I thought was interesting because I know the backstory to it. They had a model who had Down syndrome. There is a person on YouTube, her name is Jax, and she was babysitting a 13 or 14-year-old, and she wanted this kid to understand that she didn't have to have a perfect body to be perfect. And so she wrote a song that's called I Know Victoria's Secret, and it just went everywhere. And so Victoria responded by bringing her in and saying, hey, help us to make a change to this. And Sophia is one of the changes that was made. Some of the top movies were Top Gun, Maverick, Avatar, the second one, Jurassic Park. I think we're on like the 4th or 5th at this point. And The Equalizer was the new show that came out in 2022. All right, let's go back to the conversation I was having with the lawyers. With the politicians and leaders. It was just a simulation, so they would get to ride back with me. I would talk about how in a foster care's life, they would be after 2 or 3 weeks, which is huge long time for a child. They would set up visitation with their parents, and the child would be allowed to visit with their parents at a supervised visitation center. And that could be very different things depending on what it meant in that child's life. Um, uh, if that was you, if you were that child, what would be your first question when you saw your parents after a month or so? Usually it was, when can we come home? And no one knew the answer to that. The social worker can't answer that. The parents can't answer that. Even the judge at this point doesn't know the answer to that. So speaking of the judge, eventually we would finish, when we were doing our trip, we would finish off at the courthouse. It's a place that a foster child would never see. They're never invited into that. Occasionally, if you're talking about a much older, an older teen, a 16, 17-year-old, they might be invited to the court case. But other than that, the children would never see. There was this nameless, faceless judge who got to decide what would happen to them. And we talked about the judge and how the more the judge knows, the more he would be able to decide what's best for the kids. Here I went a little poetic. The kids would never meet with the judge to say whether they wanted to go home. Some of them do not, some of them do. They would never hear the lawyers explain what their parents had done or not done towards getting the kids back, because they all got a plan. The social workers would write a plan for each parent for you need to do these things in order to get the children back. They would never get to see any of that. All right, we're going to switch back to the year 2023. Ocean Gate, that was the diving shuttle that imploded because it was built wrong. Disney had their 100th anniversary. There were sky balloons. There were balloons in the skies that everybody was saying were Chinese spying on us. It may well have been. It may not. The Chinese said they were weather balloons, but you know. Hamas attacked Israel, and Israel returned the favor. And Trump was found guilty of, I believe, like 40-something charges. So he is indeed our president, who is also a felon. Alec Baldwin accidentally shoots Helena Hitchens, which that case has been dropped. Barbie came out. Oppenheimer came out, and those two were the two biggest hits of the summer, and people would want to see them both. And it's really interesting because they're like complete opposites in movies. And Taylor Swift, the Eras Tour. In fact, this tour was filmed, and then people could go to the movie theaters to watch the concert. Kind of a unique thing. And of course, Taylor started dating Travis Kelce. That was the other big thing that happened there. The Last of Us was one of the popular shows that came out. Sako was a Star Wars spinoff. Not as well received as some. The Fall of the House of Usher, that is a remake. And I'm telling you, that is, no matter, every time they remake it, it gets worse. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once was an interesting movie. My son insisted I watch that, and I did. And I think I could kind of relate to that. Galaxies of Guardians Part 3 came out. And Super Mario Brothers had a movie that also came out. So those were some of the popular shows. All right. Going back to the little thing we were talking about with the politicians and the leaders, I would say to them, you know, at the end, how would this be different if you had a CASA? Well, the child would be assigned a CASA volunteer by the court, and that CASA would visit with that child. That CASA would stay with that child throughout the whole life of the case. They would not have to go from volunteer to volunteer. It would always be the same person. That person would listen to the child, talk about his or her concerns, answers their questions, find out what the child is thinking, and be able to report that to the court. That volunteer would also meet with the parents, the foster parents, the child's families, teachers, preachers, doctors, anyone important to the child's case. And each case requires that you talk to different people. I know that I was on one case where at one point it was really important to talk to the doctors because of the neglect that the children had had as they were developing. Other cases, it might be more important to talk to their therapist. The volunteer writes all of this down every month and sends it into the report to the judge. And he would keep up the meetings with the child, answering their questions, hearing their concerns, talking to the judge, talking to anybody who needed to know what was going on with the child. Sometimes in the child's life, the most important thing might be getting a Hot Wheel. That might be the best thing that happened to them that day or that week. Other times it might be something more important, like am I going to be allowed to go to prom? Am I going to be allowed to learn how to drive? There are a lot of things that happen with kids when they're in foster care. So the volunteer would go on advocating inside court and out, because sometimes they're required that they meet with the teachers to help get the kid back on track educationally, or meet with the doctors to see what the next steps are, meet with the dentist because the child may have never had a dental appointment. Whatever the child needed, they would meet with them and make sure that was all going on track. And then whether it was decided that they should return to their parents, move on to a family member, or become open for adoption, that volunteer would still be there until the very end. Children with CASAs are more likely to find safe, permanent homes. I told you that 0.5% was all that came back into care. They're more likely to succeed in school. Studies have shown that children who have been assigned CASA volunteers, as I just said, are more likely to graduate from high school. They will be in less foster homes. They will be less moving around, and they will be less likely to re-enter the system. And now we're going to last year. Most of you remember this, but we're going to go through it real quick anyway. The Baltimore Bridge collapses. There was a total eclipse that we could actually see. NVIDIA becomes the largest tech company, and I put that one in there because it's important, because it at that time, for a little while, it was bigger than Microsoft. It was bigger than Apple. It was the biggest tech company. Also during last year with the Biden-Trump presidential debate, which was soon replaced with the Harris-Trump presidential debate after Biden performed so poorly. Trump was shot at and came up with this, of course, this becoming the actual, I guess, memory that people will have of what happened when Trump got shot at. I put this in there because this is kind of neat. I don't know if you've seen this.
We can see it coming down through the plume.
Whoop, sorry, let me try that again.
We can see it coming down through the plume.
Booster coming in hot for booster touch. And I know 13 of those Raptor engines in this field is incredible right now. You can see how fast this vehicle is moving on the left-hand side. Landing ignited. We're now down to 3 Raptor engines. We can see those chopsticks now in here.
Alright, that was important because it was from SpaceX, and it was the first rocket ever landing and coming back to where it started. If you understand the speed of the Earth and the speed of the rocket and the speed, and then getting all of that mathematically to fit together and then to be able to catch it so easily, it was incredible. It was a feat. The Olympics in 2024 were in Paris. We had Hurricane Helena. Our president, Jimmy Carter, died in December. P. Diddy was arrested and is waiting to go to trial. All right, how can you help a Child's Place CASA? Well, we've talked about a lot of these. You can donate, of course. That's important. You can help us raise awareness. Like and share and repost our social media pages. talk with friends, neighbors, college, maybe have a fundraiser. A fundraiser is similar to a fundraiser, but instead of asking people to donate, we ask them to come and hear what CASA is about. And that's all we're doing. We're just coming in to talk about, we're not taking any money, we're not taking collection, we're just coming to talk about what CASA is and get people's questions answered. We can also arrange for CASA to speak to your group, your club, your church event. And you can look for and support the various fundraisers that we're going to have this year. The workplace giving, many companies have provided matching funds that will multiply your impact. So get your coworkers involved and see if that's something that your company offers. A lot of companies do. If you donate X number of dollars to a nonprofit, they'll match that. You can join the Angel Row, and we've talked about this, a 5-year commitment to a level, and the various levels are listed there. You can give as little as $1 a year, and as much as over $1,000. I mean, there's not actually a maximum limit, but that money helps us. We know it's coming in. That's steady income. We don't have to ask for it. It just comes in, and it makes things a little bit easier when you're trying to do things like pay the bills. We have corporate sponsorships too. So talk to your bosses, your corporations. I know we have a lot of corporate sponsors that have sponsored the show CASA Love, and we really appreciate that. We also have corporate sponsorships with different levels where they can also be thanked throughout the year for some of the things that they're donating. And you visit those sponsors and thank them for their support. I'm going to point out especially Kroger, who stepped in when we lost a grant that we were supposed to get, or that we were promised, and Tri-State Medical Group, because they're always there whenever we need them. Appreciated securities. All right, this is a little bit beyond me. It's a gift of stocks, bonds, or mutual funds. You get the charitable deduction immediately on the full value of the stock, regardless of what you purchased it at. So if you purchased a stock at $5 and it's now worth $3,000, you get to take $3,000 off your taxes. And it avoids the capital gains tax that would have gone from having a $5 stock grow into a $30 stock. We talked a little bit about NIP. That's for people in West Virginia. If you live or work there, you're eligible. And it's tax credits for your donations. More of that can be found on our website page, or you can call the office for more information. Kroger Community Reward, we talked a little bit about this too. This is no cost to you. Every time you shop, you're given money back to CASA. And all you do, it's a percentage of your purchase is going to end up being used, and it'll go back to CASA. And you just link your Kroger Rewards card on the website to a Child's Place CASA. Now you could Google search it. I mean, you could search for the name of our of a Child's Place CASA, or you can use the code, which is VV721. If you haven't set that up yet, go ahead and set that up so that Kroger is able to reward a Child's Place CASA for you shopping there. We also take in-kind donations. We talked about some of these things. Paper, postage, gas cards for our volunteers. We need electrical repairs, gift cards for the kids, especially the older kids, plumbing repair, and you can leave a legacy. A planned gift, bequest, or life insurance. Basically, as you're doing your estate planning, you could come up with something that you can leave behind for a Child's Place CASA, and we would love to be there for that. Remind me when I talk about our sponsors that one of our sponsors actually can help you through that. All right, you can host your own fundraiser. You personally, or as a club, group, school, family, church, whatever. You can have we have bake sales. You can have a trivia night, a whatever-a-thon, a book-a-thon, a jump-a-thon. Whatever you're into. A garage sale we've done, dress stand days we've done, have a dinner party, a hobby challenge, like if you're into quilting, maybe once a month you guys get together and quilt, and you bring $25 that everybody donates to CASA. A holiday event is always fun, or you can email me at tina@pwl.net, because I always keep an eye on whatever the fundraiser trends are, what kind of things are a fundraising trend, and what you can do to help support us. You, of course, like, follow, and share on social media. I have a 3-year-old that says that at the end of every video. A social media page, the Child's Place CASA Facebook page, and Child's Place CASA 3640 is our YouTube page. And our GoFundMe, go.rallyup.com, which is what we're doing with Show CASA Love, is available. You can make a donation there. The QR code goes to CASA website, which is childsplacecasa.com, no And so those are a lot of different ways that you can help us out. Now, what I wanted to mention, I'm gonna bring them over here a little bit so that you can see them. Cipriani and Thomas are estate planners. That's what they do. So if you want to leave some money to CASA and put it in your estate, you can do that. You might want to contact them. LBRA is Lou Bernardi's architectural firm. So he does, if you have a business that needs to make some changes in their building, maybe you're thinking about building a new building, or maybe you've bought a new building and now you want to change the use of it, or it used to be a restaurant, now you're making it into, I don't know, a quilting shop. Go ahead and call him, Lou Bernardi. I recommend him for that. And of course, oh man, I put it down too soon. Cipriani and Thomas Law Firm for Estate Planning. All right, now I put it back. There we go. All right, guys, that's about it for right now. I hope you have had some fun. Wow, this one went a little bit longer than I thought it was going to go. But I will see you guys tomorrow. Tomorrow's going to be really fun. We have volunteers, and we're going to talk about what's coming in the future. All right? Don't ask how I know, but some of the things I do know. I will see you tomorrow.